Hang on, I gotta unmute myself. Thank you. Okay, so introductions. We're going to start with introductions today, and in the interest of time, we're going to have everyone just introduce yourself in the Zoom chat. So if you could please just add your name and what library you are from to introduce, let us know who's on today, who's here. And then for note taker today, we have Lisa. I think it's Lisa Shemensky, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I only put the first name. And then chat monitor today is Jennifer. And recording reminder today is Lisa also. All right, and it looks like we've got several people online. So thank you for adding your names and where you're from, and continue to do so if you haven't yet.
Oh, good. I see Jane on here. Jane will
I was going to say,
Jane will be chat monitor. Yeah.
If Jane has to leave for some reason, I will step in as chat monitor.
Awesome.
We've got a lot going on here, so thank you for bearing with us.
I won't be leaving. Just FYI, my appointment is over. So thank you though, ladies.
Okay, great.
Well, welcome. Okay, so let's move on to the updates and just some information about some upcoming RSA and Rails and CMC trainings and workshops. Check the L2 calendar. There's several for RSA workshops. We've got the RSA Basic Workflow Circulation Workshop, Tuesday, March 9th from 2 to 4. The RSA Basic Workflows Holds Workshop, Thursday, March 11, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. There will be RSA Virtual Office Hours tomorrow, March 11th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. RSA Basic Workflows Cataloging Workshop, that's the 3-day workshop beginning March 23rd. And there's also a Blue Cloud Analytics training for basic users on Thursday, March 25th from 2 to 4. If you're looking for additional catalog classes, you can contact Nancy George. And then we also have a webinar from CMC. They hold what they call the Online with the CMC. And they have a short series of online training sessions that the CMC staff holds. And they've got one coming up on Thursday, March 18th. And the topic will be Braille, Decoding the Dots. You can also register for that one on L2. And then my final reminder or update will be to make sure that you have changed your email for the RSA help desk. It should be help@rsanfp.org. So the other one still works, but eventually you're going to want to make sure you get that changed over so that they'll all be going through there. That's all the updates I had. Erica, did you have anything else for updates that I might have missed?
I think the only thing I'll chime in, we touched on this last time, so we won't go into too much depth here, but just remember, if you get an email from us at that help@rsanfp.org, if we reach out to you and you think, wait a minute, I don't want that email address being used, that's not the best email for me. Remember, on our website, rsanfp.org, we have this library, change your help desk preferred email form. So just keep that in mind if you get an email from us at some point and it's at an address that you prefer we don't use. So that's the only thing I can think of at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to move on into the RSA updates then. This will be what is continued from the February 4th meeting. So this is our in-between meeting. And let's see, we're going to start off with Lisa Shemensky, and she's going to talk about cataloging requests.
Okay, let me just grab the screen real quick. Oh, I'm going to stop Erica sharing and then grab my screen. Okay, hi everybody. So like Heidi said, I'm going to be doing an update on some of our processing times and a couple other pieces of information. So just to kind of keep you informed, our standard processing time right now does remain at 21 to 28 business days. And that is like post any quarantine time if you've sent in any physical items into our office for cataloging. Do note though that some requests are going to be processed sooner than that 21 to 28 business processing time. It just kind of depends on who has your ticket and like what our current like RSA workload is, or if there's been any illnesses or vacation time used, things like that. But generally speaking, it is 21 to 28. Yeah, Jane?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the recording has started. I didn't get notice that it had started, and I just wanted to make sure she had gotten it.
The recording, I see that it's recording.
Yes.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I do.
My apologies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do. I do too in the upper left corner. I see the light blinking, but thank you for double checking
Yeah.
because as you know, in the past, I've definitely futzed this up before. So yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you, Jade. So do note though, like obviously we for sure want to get back down to that 7 to 14 business day processing time, and all of us are working really hard to get our queues down to that turnaround time. But like, what do I mean by standard processing time? Basically, like when we say that, it just means the amount of time RSA takes to ensure an item's cataloged in workflows with the change me call number, and it's ready for the library to edit their item's actual call number and item information, so that item can begin to start checking out. This could mean like us creating a brief record even, and then like putting it back in our queue and then kind of backtracking to, create a full level record for that. So basically like that just means the time it takes to get it circulating. So yeah. Rush processing times though, those still remain at 2 business days. Again, that includes like post quarantine time, like if you've sent in physical items to our office. Rush requests with digital photos, scans, or file sharing links are often processed within the same business day because we have the information for those items right away. And then like if you're, if you need a refresher on what qualifies as a rush request, if you're on the cataloging request form and you scroll down to the section here where you can either choose standard or rush. It does list here. Move this over. It does list here that the item, you could submit a rush request for, like if you have an upcoming library program and you need an item for that. If you have a specific patron that is waiting for this item, that's another reason you might submit a rush request. You might also submit one too if the item needs to be immediately available. In this example here is like for an academic course reserve, for like teachers or students. But if you feel like you have something that like doesn't meet one of these like qualifiers, but you're like, I'm pretty sure like this is a rush request still, just contact the RSA help desk if you feel like you have a need for a rush beyond these scenarios, because we can only think of so much before you submit the rush request, and just kind of talk to us about it. So that's this little reminder. And then just like a reminder, like I said earlier, a standard or rush request may be cataloged on a workflow's brief record or an OCLC record with less than full description. So prime example of that's like if you submit a cataloging request for an encoding level 3 upgrade, like since your item can circulate, that'll just go into our backlog and we'll, come back to it to put it on a full level record. Okay, so that's our like current processing times. And if does anybody have any questions in the chat about that or anything at all? No, okay. And then there's just a couple other things I want to talk about. One of them is out of scope cataloging request, and then quarantine times, because those have been like reduced. But first, out of scope cataloging requests. So back in January, I think it was January 5th, we made some changes or started making changes in phase 1 to like the cataloging request process. So we have updated our form, but just a refresher, like up here at the top of our cataloging request form are reasons why, like the most common reasons why you'd submit a cataloging request form. And they include if you're unable to find an existing OCLC record or a record in workflows that, if you don't use OCLC connection that matches your item, you'd submit a request for that. Thank you to Faye at Brown County. If you're listening, shout out to Faye. But this step over here, like if you're only able to find it in encoding level 3, we need to remove this MR8 section here. But if, again, like if you find an encoding level 3, like that's when you would want to submit a cataloging request. So we can upgrade that encoding level 3. If you only find a brief record that matches your item, if you're unsure of which record's the best match for your item, either in workflows or OCLC, you can submit a cataloging request and we'll help you choose the best one. Or if you need to catalog any one of these things that are listed here that qualify for an approved brief record use. And if you happen to like to submit something and it doesn't quite fit in this and it's kind of out of scope for what the cataloging request is used for, we'll reply to your request. Oops, sorry. So we'll reply to your request just to let you know that that ticket is out of scope, and we're not just going to close your cataloging request without letting you know that we're going to be doing that. And then the last thing that I have to talk about is the reduction in quarantine time period. So some of you might have seen a message that came out from Rails that quarantine times have been reduced to 1 day. So we're also going to be following that. And that's, again, based on the Rails guidance that came out on February 24th of this year. So this applies to cataloging requests that were sent in delivery, whether it's a physical item or a photocopy for your ticket. So Erica, I believe it's Erica, she's going to be sending out an RSA listserv post, like officially making an announcement of this reduced quarantine time for cataloging requests. So keep an eye on the listserv for that. But do keep in mind, like the quarantine time period might be a day, but some items that you send into our office might sit in like we have tables set up for like our quarantine tables, but they might sit in quarantine for longer than a day. And there's 2 primary reasons why. The main one being is that we're all working from home. So we're not in the office every single day. And like, in order to make the best use of our time during the workday, especially with the interstate construction that's happening right now on the bridge that's like literally at our exit to get to work, we're only going into the office once or twice a week to pick up and drop off materials. So we're not in there every day to grab stuff. And the other reason too is that due to the varying amounts of incoming cataloging submissions, the Rails delivery, they only visit our office, maybe 2 or 3 times a week to drop off submissions. So as a result, like the people that are going into sort, like the catalogers that are going into sort, we're only going in 2 or 3 times a week also to sort delivery and make sure it gets to who it needs to go to. But those are some of the reasons why it might sit in our office for a few days before we're able to grab it. But that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? I'll take the silence as a resounding no. So up next is Jennifer.
Thank you. Try to share my screen here. Yes, I do. Okay, hopefully you see an L2 event for the cataloging. I hope so. Give me a thumbs up or something if you see what what I'm trying to show. You don't see anything
I do
yet?
not, no.
Oh, come on. Screen 2. Share. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Let me get situated. I lose everything as soon as I share my screen. Okay. We do have a couple of basic cataloging workshops scheduled for April and for May. Those are online. We decided we're going to look more into whether we'll start having these in person after the May workshop. We'll just kind of see how it goes then. For now, they're online and they're spread over a 3-day format. And I just want to show you here, I'm showing the one that's coming up in April that actually Lisa is teaching. It'll be from Tuesday, April 6th through Thursday, April 8th. And I guess what I want to point out is you do need to attend all 3 days. There's just so much information. And I know it is kind of hard to find time for 3 days, but it is very important that you're able to attend for all 3 days for the workshops. And I'm just going to scroll down here. As you can see, this particular one in April is in the afternoon from 1:30 to 4. We do build in some flex time within that. And part of that time is included with that flex time. If you have any questions, you know, log in a little bit early, you know, to see if you have any type of technical difficulties. Hopefully not. And let's see, as far as requirements go, I definitely want to point out this area right here. The first one that we have is very important, is whoever is signing up for the workshop should be receiving written or verbal permission from a supervisor, a director, or administration to register for the workshop. We're not asking that people share proof with us, you know, actual proof of this, but we're asking that anyone who signs up for these cataloging workshops should, you know, receive permission from a supervisor. You need to have access to internet connected computer. You also need access to workflows on that computer. And those installations for workflows, if somebody happened to use maybe a laptop, we've had this happen at home, that is possible. You just need to contact the RSA help desk prior to the workshop, actually probably a couple days prior, you know, to make sure that you're good to go. And then we also ask that you have a webcam, a usable webcam, or one that works. If you don't, we do have one that we can provide for you, and we'll send it through delivery. Let's see, I mentioned the times. The next one, I know in May, it's when I'm teaching. The times are a little bit different. We were trying to schedule some in the morning, some afternoon. So like I said, this April one is in the afternoon. The one in May that I am teaching, May 4th, 5th, and 6th, is actually from 9:30 to noon. So we're trying to switch between morning and afternoon, see what works better for everybody. Let's see, you'll see invitations on the listserv for the 2 upcoming workshops in April and May. And Erica, I have a question, actually. The basic cataloging training for single library is only offered to new libraries joining RSA. Is that something you wanted to touch a little bit more on, or am I supposed to know something a little bit more about that? Or
Oh, no, actually, that's pretty much all that's important to know at this point.
okay,
We'll talk later on about where we are with new members, but I'm hoping actually we're going to have a hiatus with doing one-on-one trainings for new members. But yes, that's the most important thing to know, is with the new ones, it is one-on-one training versus the group. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for checking.
okay, no, thanks for clarification. And the last thing, well, 2 last things. If you have any questions about the workshops or the requirements that we have in place, just be sure to contact the RSA help desk. And at this time, because I know a lot of people ask, the OCLC connection client workshops are not currently offered, are still working on that. RSA does hope to begin those by summer, and we will share any information on those on the RSA listserv. And I think that's it, unless Erica, you had anything else. It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
And I know I'm next on the agenda. I guess if no one has any questions out there, are there any questions about the workshops? Going to say no. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda then. Which are videos. Okay. On our website, and hopefully you can still see my screen okay. Let's see, right in front of me. If you look here, we have training videos. And I want to say thank you to Roxy and Patty and Morton. They let us put these on our website here. We're going to be visiting the Morton YouTube for videos on mending. And actually, they're really good videos. I checked them out. Very, very helpful videos. You can see there are 5 videos here. I think the longest video is maybe 9 minutes long. We appreciate them sharing those, and we have them, like I said, up on our website. I would definitely recommend checking these out. And if anybody has any recommendations for any future videos, you know, that you would like RSA staff to do, let us know. Just contact the help desk and please let us know. And Erica, if there's nothing else.
Yeah, I can't think of anything
Think
else.
I've covered it all?
We
Yeah,
did have a request for the link to be added to the chat room
Oh, sure.
or to the chat. It's not a
I can
chat
do
room.
that. I
Sorry.
know what you mean. No problem. I can
good,
do that.
good
Thank you, Jane.
suggestion, Heidi. Thank you. And for Jane for
Didn't even think about that. Thank you. I will do
piping
that.
up. Okay,
And then I think that's it. Now we'll get that in the chat.
let me see if I can switch the screen back. Okay. Heidi, do you want to announce the next agenda item and then we'll go from there?
Sure.
Alright.
Let's see here. Looks like we are going to we're going to be, actually Erica's up and she's going to be talking about new cataloging parameters.
Yes, you can tell we're trying another experiment with this meeting, having Heidi guide the agenda. So we are forging ahead with a new way of doing things. So we're still getting the feel of this. Okay. Okay, so we've got quite a few home locations we've created since the September 30th database committee meeting. Remember, on February 4th, this was one of the things we ran out of time to talk about. So we've got quite a few listed here. Remember to email the help desk, help@rsanfp.org, if you'd like to start using any of these. And then remember, if you have an urgent need for a code, the best way to contact us is to call, because that will get a more immediate response than sending an email. So if there's something that's pretty urgent and it needs to be cataloged and you don't have the code, certainly reach out to us by phone. But otherwise, like I mentioned, you're welcome to send an email. Excuse me. Here's the item category 4s that we created since the last meeting in September, the last time we talked about this. Just 2 of them. I actually am glad these are slowing down a bit. We already have quite a lot of codes, as I'm sure you know, in item category 4. So we're happy to see this slow down a little bit. But the same thing, if you'd like any of these in your menu, email or call if it's urgent. Oops, I'm getting scroll happy. Okay, item category 5, we had about half a dozen of those since the last meeting in September. Contact us if you'd like to start using any of these. Again, phone call if it's urgent. And then I had a slide, I'm not sure where it went, but we have not created any new item types. Item category 1, item category 2, or item category 3. We have not created any new codes for those, and that's normal. We don't typically make new item types unless there's truly a need. And then remember, item cats 1, 2, and 3, those are pretty defined vocabularies: fiction, nonfiction, reading level, and then the general format. Okay, any questions about parameters? Okay, I know there's still some in the pipe waiting to be created. I know Heidi had sent us some within the past couple of weeks, so hang in there. But like I said, keep us posted if there's truly an urgent need. Okay, next agenda item, Heidi.
Oh, sorry. I'm having a heck of a time with my mouse today. Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so the next agenda item will be options for halted publication for the Dr. Seuss books. And this is Erica as well.
Thank you. Yeah, this is I know that was kind of a clunky, clunky agenda item. I just didn't.
That's a good one.
I just didn't want anyone to think that all of these have to be recatalogued, because I know if you hadn't seen the news story, I think it was last week it came out that the Dr. Seuss enterprise that takes care of Dr. Seuss's publications, since he's no longer living, they've been taking another look at Dr. Seuss books, like many other parts of our society, and keeping an eye out for, they use the terms hurtful and wrong imagery, racist connotations. So they decided last week that they're going to stop publication of these 6 titles here. We've had a few RSA libraries reach out to ask us how they can limit circulation and holds. And this is a local library decision. Like it's mentioned here, I don't want anybody to think that RSA is trying to tell you what to do with your collection. But we know that you may want to restrict circulation and holds because these have really skyrocketed in value online. If you look on Amazon or other, even like eBay, the price is skyrocketing because everybody's trying to snatch them up before they're all gone, since they're not being published anymore. So you may want to take them out of circulation and holds for that reason, or maybe you too feel the imagery isn't really appropriate. So whatever reason that makes sense to your library, certainly check with your supervisor and or director. We can add the book non-circ item type to your item type menu. Member services would actually take care of doing this since it's an easy add to your workflows menu. The nice thing about the book non-circ is that it's already configured system-wide to block checkouts and holds. So we don't have to put in a circulation and hold rule just for you. We do need to add it to your item type drop-down menu if you don't already have it. But like I mentioned, that's a quick step member services will do. And then the other thing about the book non-circ, let's say you wanted to make an exception and check the book out to somebody, maybe it was a teacher or somebody trusted, a trusted patron. You can still check out the Dr. Seuss book, assigned book non-circ, or anything else assigned book non-circ. You just enter the override at the time of the checkout. And then at that point, the loan period becomes 1 day. Anna, chime in here if this isn't right, but if you are unsure of the override, check with your supervisor and or director. And then if you're still unsure of the override, to go around the checkout, I know Anna would be willing to share it with you. So I think that's it for the Dr. Seuss books. Yeah, any questions about that? Was there anything in the chat, even just comments? I'm looking now. Okay, Aaron at Illinois Prairie says they pulled theirs until it blows over.
Heidi did too.
Yeah.
We pulled ours also.
Okay. Yeah, just keep in mind if you'd like the
Waiting.
book non-circ, but that makes sense. Just to see how this plays out. Yeah. Okay. Well,
So just to kind of recap, I'm trying to kind of make notes as we go. So Lisa Schmensky mentioned the cataloging request times that you guys are working on reducing those times, and you still have the backlog. And you're still at 21 to 28 days, and we're hoping for 7 to 14 soon. The rush processing time still remain the 2 days, and we can still do standard or rush requests if necessary. And I made a note to review the Autoscope cataloging requests so that we aren't just sending things that aren't necessary. And I think the big one was not to send items that just need updating, like the 3 M's and 8 records. Is that correct?
So you do send 3s, but it's M's and 8s.
Okay, so we do send 3s.
Yeah. And on our, yeah, thanks, Erica. So on
Sure.
our form, like we did remember to update that part.
the important part.
The important one. And then as Faye pointed out, we did, this is our bad, but we did forget up at the top that M or an 8. on the second bullet
Gold
point.
star for Faye, because we did
Yeah.
this 2 months ago and she is the first to have noticed. So I don't know if Faye is in this meeting, but gold star to her, because like Lisa said, we overlooked it, but Faye noticed it, and maybe you noticed it too, but Faye actually told us. So
That's great. Okay, so don't send M's and 8s, but do send 3s.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I didn't
And
say
then-
this in my update, but the reason why we're not doing M's and 8s is that we can run reports on our end. So in the future, like as time allows, we can run those reports and do the upgrades for those ourselves at that time. So this will end up like saving everybody some time on their end instead of having to send all this stuff to us.
Cool. And then the reduction in your quarantine period is down to 1 day.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And then for cataloging training, Jennifer mentioned several of the options and showed us how to go into L2 to register for those. And then we have the mending videos from Morton that we put the link in so we can get to those. I thank you for that link because I wanted to share that with my staff and I was afraid I would forget to go back in and do it.
No, thank you for saying something. I didn't even think about it when I was talking about it. So appreciate that. I think it's in there twice, actually. Jane got it, and then I end up putting it in right after Jane. So
Sorry.
All right. Hey, we got it in
no,
there.
thank you,
didn't we?
Jane.
Sorry. Just didn't
So,
know if you.
oh, sorry. So for the new cataloging parameters, are those available on the website, or where can we go to look at those again if we didn't screenshot it?
good question. They should be updated here on the website. So let me go here to rsanfp.org, which remember is the shortcut for this colorful site. They should be here under system info and support. You can also use system parameters. I think I'll use system parameters. It's a little more direct. Yeah, so let's take a look here. Remember, we didn't add any item types or categories 1, 2, or 3. The 4 should be updated. Notice the date, but let's make sure. Yeah, I had highlighted the ones that were new since the February meeting. So all of them may not be highlighted that we discussed today, but all of them are on this list.
Okay.
Yeah, if the highlighting would be helpful for all of them from this slide, I can certainly do that. I know I had tweaked the list. Well, actually, there's only 2 of them. Let me double check here. It's always tricky when we think we're talking about it during one meeting and then it gets pushed to another meeting and then the list gets kind of goofed up. So let me see here.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, this list are things that
Yeah.
are already created. So if our
Right.
if the library wants to add these as an option, they're not automatically going to show up. You have to suggest, you have
Right.
to send in a request to add those for your library. Okay.
It really depends on if your library's item category 4 menu is customized. So this is the complete list of all of the codes available, but you're on the right track, Heidi, because if your menu hasn't been customized, you will see all of the codes. But if it has been customized just to have certain codes in it that your library's using, you won't see the newly added codes. So it really depends on your library's setup for category 4 and 5. And that's something, if anyone has a question whether the menu's customized or not, we can certainly look into that for you when you contact the help desk. Yeah. And then I think the item cat 5 list is updated as well. We'll just take a look here. Like I said, I should probably go back and put more highlighting in these since we didn't in fact cover it during the February meeting like we expected. But yes, all of the codes here that are available with newer ones in yellow are here.
Great. Okay, cool. And let's see, then we discussed the Dr. Seuss books and what we can do to highlight or to hide those if we want. And then that brings us up to a break if we need to take a break.
We are flying through this faster than I thought. So I think I'm going to go ahead and push forward. Does anybody really need a break? Go ahead and type in the text chat or unmute yourself. But I was thinking the break would fall about an hour in. So we will go ahead and push forward if that's okay.
All right, sounds good to me. So we're going to move on then to encoding level K records.
Yeah, this is a good one that came up. This, as it mentions here, this was a suggestion from Carla at the Macomb Public Library. She suggested this, I think, back in January. So thank you, Carla. Okay, so let's take a look here at what's going on with level Ks. Let me first pull up an example. These are not records that you really you really need to worry about, to be honest. But there is a change happening in OCLC with level K records. So it's helpful for us to go ahead and talk about it. I think I'll open my maintenance wizard, pull up this example. Okay, so notice up here, on the bibliographic tab, it does have the encoding level value of a K. Just scrolling down, looking at the bibliographic description, it's a pretty good record. It has author, title, physical description, tells you what it is. It has some notes, a summary, some subject headings. So it's not a perfect record, but you and your patrons would be able to search for it and understand that it's about Valentine's Day and it's a kid's book, and understand whether or not they want to check it out or place a hold on it if they were looking in the catalog. So the description is sufficient. But OCLC announced they're going to be making a change, and this is actually part of a wider change in the cataloging community to do away with these encoding level values that are letters. Remember, encoding level just means the level of detail used on the record to describe the item. So the bigger cataloging community, I know Library of Congress is pushing for this along with other national libraries like Libraries and Archives Canada and the British Library. But there's a bigger change to get rid of these alphabetical values. So OCLC announced, let me pull up here their message and we'll kind of summarize. They announced not too long ago that in OCLC, they're going to be combing through the hundreds of millions of records and converting with an automated process those records to use different encoding level values, since the level K and some of those other alphabetical values are becoming obsolete. So let me open that here. We'll see which screen it opens on. It's always a mystery. Okay, here we go. So this was soon after the new year started. Notice January 11th. The person in charge of the OCLC metadata department announced on a cataloging listserv that they're going to start using, instead of the K, as part of this shift in the MARC, the machine readable cataloging standard, they're going to start using, instead of the K, start to use numbers or a blank value, which are becoming the valid values rather than the obsolete alphabetical values. So they're combing through, like I mentioned, and probably more than this because this was back in January. They're combing through, we'll say, about 26 million level K records in WorldCat this year and probably into next year. And they're changing them from the K to one of these values, like I mentioned, that's now valid. So if it has full description based off of the parameters that are configured into the OCLC algorithm, it'll be a blank encoding level. If it's kind of in between, it's not full, but it's not real crummy abbreviated description, like a level 3, they'll do a 7 for minimal. And then 3 is, as we know, are really the worst. The technical term for that is abbreviated, though I know sometimes here at RSA we use minimal. It's the way to describe 3s. But in OCLC speak, they consider it abbreviated, but just think of it as those really poorly made records that don't have much beyond a title and an author typically. So Carla had asked if there was a way in workflows where she at her library could do some cleanup as time and energy allows, looking for these records and seeing if it had since been updated in OCLC to a different encoding level. So we now have a report in Blue Cloud Analytics, which I'll show you here in a minute, but I just wanted to emphasize that this is not required cleanup. So if you have time to do this, great, but we realize that many of you probably don't have time or staff or even energy to be doing this. So we do applaud Carla's efforts and the staff at Macomb, but like I said, I just want to make sure nobody feels like you're being told this is required to go back and look these up and try to get better records for them. Remember, the description is sufficient, so you and your users will be able to find them, understand what they're about, and decide whether or not to check it out or to do the hold. But if you want to take a look and see how many of these you have in your collection with level K, the first option, you can submit a report request if you'd like us to run this report for you. On the RSA homepage here in the middle, remember there's an RSA report request form. You could just say down here, you know exactly what you want. You can just type, it won't do it because I didn't fill out the form, but on the next screen, you could just type encoding level K and then an RSA staff member will run it and send it to you. So that's your first option. I'm going to leave that. Your second option is to log into Blue Cloud Analytics if you've done that training. And the other thing to keep in mind about this, if you're running this level K report yourself, not only do you need a Blue Cloud Analytics login, but you also need a Blue Cloud Analytics login that has the capability to access private patron information called PII, personally identifiable information. So if you log into Blue Cloud Analytics and open up the reports folder and go to your shared reports, you may not see this advanced reports folder. If you don't see it, I would submit the report request if you'd like the level K report. Getting the level of access to look at patron information like addresses and emails and phone numbers, it requires some additional legwork, and you probably don't need to do that legwork just to access an encoding level K report. But for now, this level K report is saved in this advanced reports folder that you can only access if you have that additional layer of private account capability in Blue Cloud Analytics. So I'll go ahead and open the folder. Notice there's a cataloging subfolder. Here's a level K report, and then you would pick your library. I did save a sample. I know sometimes Blue Cloud Analytics, it acts funny, and then it kind of doesn't want to output your report. So I went ahead and ran a report ahead of time in case it wasn't able to cooperate here. This output is cleaned up a little bit for the level K report. Kendall and I were working on this, and I'm still making some changes to the output. This actually is much more streamlined of an output than what you'll see if you ran the report right now. Really, you just need the name of it. It'd be good to know, your item barcode number, its call number, and then what its OCLC control number is. So you could look it up in OCLC to see if its record had been updated. But just keep in mind that this report output is still a work in progress, but like I said, we're trying to get it cleaned up so that it doesn't have a lot of information that you don't need just to focus on these records. Yeah, let me take a look here. I think, oh, I haven't told you one of the most important things. So let's say I look this up from the report that I get from Blue Cloud Analytics. So here's the control number. Let's say I look this up here in OCLC in my connection client to see if the record's been updated. Remember, this is optional. So RSA is not requiring you to do this. And unfortunately, this is a K. Let's say hypothetically, this had been improved and it was now full. In that case, you're welcome to re-import the record into workflows. So it replaces the K with the full record. You could do that. Please don't submit the K to us, though, to update. Remember, we're trying to focus on the backlog and working through what's coming in. So we're trying not to get sidetracked on too many things right now. So submitting Ks would really set us off the path that we're trying to follow right now. And remember, the description is sufficient. So it really, it isn't hurting anything the way it is. Let's say you look this record up in OCLC, knowing it's a K in workflows. You look it up here and you notice it's now a 3 in OCLC, because remember, one of the values they mentioned back in January is they comb through these K records, they might make it a 3 if it doesn't have much description on it. If that happens and it's a 3 and it's the only record available, there's nothing else that matches your item. In that case, you could submit a cataloging request because it's technically a 3 at that point. And that's the only thing available. And like Lisa mentioned a few minutes ago, we do take requests for 3s on the form. But I just think the main thing to keep in mind about this is there's a level K report. You can run it yourself or ask us for it. If you use OCLC connection and you notice some of the records have been updated, you're welcome to bring them into workflows yourself, but there's no requirement from us to do that. If you notice something's a 3, if you have the time and energy to look through your Ks, if you notice something is only available as a 3, then it can be reported to us. But again, all of this is completely optional, and I know it's somewhat confusing. So I think I'll stop there. That's what I wanted to tell you, but I wanted to pause for questions.
So Erica, it sounds like this is something that if you want to do this, you can, and it would be basically finding any K records in workflows and then pulling in the new records from OCLC.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's something that OCLC will be working on as well.
Yes, that's right too. Yeah, OCLC's combing through, what did they say? Nearly 26 million records out here in their WorldCat database, and they have an automated process that looks and sees how much descriptions in here, and depending on the fields, it assigns the full value, the 3 or the 7. Something else, so I should probably mention, just because the record is updated in OCLC doesn't mean it's automatically updated in our database. I'm thinking a lot of you probably know that, but I think it bears repeating here because I know sometimes there's confusion of, well, we have the record in workflows, it's in OCLC. Why can't the two just talk to each other and update? That would be nice, but it's unfortunately way too expensive to set up the service that can deliver real-time bibliographic record updates to our database, since we have over 1 million bibliographic records. So we unfortunately cannot afford that service. But smaller standalone libraries that don't have, you know, millions of records to look at can do that kind of thing. Yeah. At some point, we may consider you know, looking at all of the records and workflows. Remember, I mentioned a couple times that these alphabetical values, there's a push in the wider cataloging community, and this is part of it, to do away with those for numbers or blanks. So eventually we may look into doing some kind of mass cleanup. But if you think about it, the encoding level doesn't really affect the patron experience. We're more concerned about the meat of the record and the description there. So
And we do have a question, Eric.
Sure, go ahead.
Chantry would like to know that she said she sees level I a lot and wants to know if the level I records are similar to the level K.
Yeah, that's a good question too. So the level I's are full level records. The level I is going away as well, and it will just be a blank since I is a letter. But right, for now, both I and blank are full encoding level values. Yeah. I would say just keep an eye out for level 3s and then also brief records, and keep us posted with a cataloging request if you see those. I know we've tried to avoid getting into too much depth about all the encoding level values, because I think there's at least 8 or 10 of them. So just remember 3 or M, keep telling us, or excuse me, not M, 3 or brief, to keep telling us, and then everything else, just kind of do your best and use it, because remember, it does have sufficient description for you and your patrons. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, either in the chat or anything else someone's thought of? Okay, I think let's take another look at the agenda. I think I'll do one more agenda item and then we'll take a break. How does that sound?
Sounds good. So we are now on to strange fixed fields on OCLC records.
Yes, this one, thank you to Julia at Normal and also Jennifer at Peoria for reporting this to us. I know Julia saw it back in December, and then I know Jennifer saw it in early February. We've been trying to figure out, I think I've got an idea now what's going on, but we were trying to make sure nothing in our workflows database was causing this trouble. So let's take a look at some examples. Okay, I'm going to pull this up. Got another control number. Okay, so notice up here in the fixed fields, these little boxes at the top of the bibliographic record that have different numerical or alphabetical values with information about the item that the record's describing and the record itself. Notice some of them look correct with letters, but a lot of them have these vertical lines called the pipe in workflows. It's a delimiter. It separates the different fields. So we wanted to make sure with Circe Dynex, our workflows vendor, that this wasn't happening in our database, because as we all know, workflows sometimes does strange things, especially when records are loaded from OCLC into our database. We did get confirmation that these records are coming into our database this way. So our database is not doing this to the records. So that's reassuring, since sometimes workflows is the problem. What is happening is in OCLC, when the constant data is being applied, it's being applied not to the variable fields, which is these fields here in the middle of the record, including the 949 tag with the local holding statement. It may be applying the 949 tag, but it's also applying fixed field values as part of the constant data. And when that happens, it strips out those values we need in the fixed fields. So let me show you how this is happening. It is primarily one RSA member that's doing this, and we will be reaching out to that library to work through this. But I thought this meeting would be a good opportunity, though, just for everybody to keep an eye out on this, because looking at a system-wide report, I can see this has been done periodically, but it really started hot and heavy last September by a particular RSA library. But like I said, I do see this happening occasionally, though, in the past. So there's, this is a little bit complicated. I'll do my best, but there's 3 different ways that this can happen. So the first way is if you're here in your cataloging, and you're going to make some constant data your default. So let me pull up my constant data. You only need to worry about this if your library uses OCLC connection to load records into workflows. If you don't use connection, you can you can blissfully tune out for the next several minutes. So let's say right here, in my list of constant data, let's say I want to make this adult fiction book. I want to make that my new default template so that when I catalog in here, let's say most of what I catalog are fiction books. So I want to make this the default because it'll make it easier as I'm putting my call number item information on OCLC records if I have this one set as my default. When I go up here to the edit menu and go to constant data, this is saved locally. If I set this as the default, make sure only variable is selected here. This is very important because if it says fixed or both, it's going to wipe out these values at the top, the fixed field. So we want to make sure it says variable. I'm going to go ahead and pick both just so you can see what this does to the record, because this is the problem we're having in workflows. I'm going to go ahead and shut all this. Okay, so I've just pulled up a record here. This is actually one of them that has erased fixed fields in workflows. Oh, this is actually the level K. That's okay, this will work. So if I go here to edit and constant data to apply my default, yeah, see, it gives you a warning, but I'm not sure that warning is always being taken. And I know this warning also does not appear if it's the same format. So if I was applying this to a book record, I wouldn't even see that. But notice it strips out those values. They become black boxes. So this is what's coming into our database that's causing trouble with quite a few things since those fixed fields are important. So that's the first way this can happen. There's 2 other ways here I'll show you using, I think I'll use a different record maybe that actually matches the format of my of my constant data. That's my audiobook one. Let me get a different one here. Okay, here we go. Here's one with a book. So this can also happen, not just if I go to edit constant data, apply my default, it can also happen applying constant data by name. So if I picked both here, oh, I have to type in something. Let's see, AG fiction book. Oh, poop. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Let me take a look here at my examples again. Adult fiction book. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, we'll try this again. So constant data, local, apply by name. Okay, how about that? So adult fiction book. Okay, and then let's say I picked both, not realizing what was going to happen. Yeah, so notice the fixed fields are stripped out, which will calls those pipes once it's in workflows. But then notice down here, it does put the 949 tag, which is what you need to put in your call number item information so that we know it's your library's copy once it comes into workflows. So that's the second way this can happen. And then the final way, let's pull that record up again. Yeah, okay, so if I go up here to edit, the third way is still applying constant data, but there's this list option. If I just hit OK here, I can see all of them. So I'll go with the fiction book again. Just make sure though, before you double click the template you want to use or you hit apply selected, either one, make sure this variable is selected. From what I was reading in the Oclc client documentation, this should be the default. There's no way to make this the default. But somehow we have at least one member where it's getting applied to both. And remember, when that happens, there go the fixed fields, and then you still have the 949 at the bottom. So please just be careful when you're applying constant data. It's variable, and then doing a double check to make sure that the fixed field values are still valid before you bring it into workflows. Like I said, this has primarily been one library for the past several months, and we'll be working with that library so that they know this information. But like I said, it's happened sporadically in the past, maybe just here and there with libraries. So I thought it'd be a good idea to mention it to this group because I know several of you in this group use Oclc Connection. Okay. I'm going to pause there for questions. Let's see. Okay, I see something from Chantry. Do you know how this affects Connection Browser? Okay, yep, let me go in there. Okay, I think I'm fully logged out. As you can see earlier, I sometimes forget to log out. So that's why I have my timer set very low. Let's see. Oh dear, wrong spot. I better try that password again since who knows where my cursor was. Okay. Yeah, so let's take a look in here. I'm not sure. I might want to use my book record again. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to plug in a different number here, an Oclc number to search by. Yeah, okay, so in here, apply constant data by name. This could be dangerous. Let's wait on that one. Let's do the list one first. I'm not sure okay, I was going to say, I'm not sure I know the names in here. So AG Books is one of them. Okay, so if you're applying from the list, let me backtrack here. You have the record open, you decide, yes, this matches my item. I want to go ahead and use it. If you do this list option here, there should be at the top of this box, it should say variable fields only. But again, I think somehow whole record is being selected for some of these since the fixed fields are being wiped out, but it should have variable fields selected. And much like the connection client documentation, from what I was reading, the connection browser documentation also makes it sound like this is the default. But I didn't really see any setting or any mention of a setting in that documentation where you could actually control this. So just make sure it's variable. And then the same is true for the name. Oh, this one's got a name in here. Okay, let's try that. But notice here, the default is whole record. So you definitely want to do variable fields only here, because if you did the apply constant data by name option like this shows, and it had whole record selected, and you apply it, there go the fix fields. So notice those are gone. And then further down, it does put in your 949 tag. To me, it's really strange that when you apply it by name, it has the whole record selected as the default, but when you apply from the list, it has the variable fields. And then in connection client, it seems to have the variable selected as the default. So I'm not really sure there is a default with this. So I think the best thing to do is just make sure that it's always variable as you're working with constant data templates.
Erica, Lori Haller would like to know if she can attach to those records if she sees them.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, you can attach to the records. That's actually where we're heading. So that ties in well. Yeah, if you find this in workflows and it matches your item, because remember, it does still have the bibliographic description. So you'll be able to confirm whether or not it matches. Yeah, you can attach to it. Again, there's a couple different approaches. If you have OCLC access at your library and you have the time to bring in the record again because you need to catalog your copy on it, you can do that. But I realize plenty of our members don't use OCLC connection to re-import it. And also, even if you do, you may not have time to re-import everything, because remember, our procedure is you check workflows first, and if there's a match, you attach to it there. You don't then go to OCLC unless you're a library where you do advanced cataloging and you do master record edits. So I realize, you probably the easiest thing to do is compare this to your item, make sure it matches, and then what you can do to report it to us. I'd like to use an existing procedure. I'm trying to streamline and not make so many separate procedures for everything, even though I know it probably seems like the opposite's true. But on the RSA homepage, rsanfp.org, under the workflows, documentation and training, under the cataloging, and then this documents multiple pages. So I'm going to go to guides and how-tos. There's this first document for reporting cataloging issues to us. Like I said, I'd like to have us just use existing instructions rather than making something brand new. But notice there's a section in here that says record in need of update. Let's have you just do the instructions here in this section. This admittedly needs to be revised to mention that the fix fields have been wiped out in workflows. So that's not mentioned in here, but basically you just send a regular email to us. This is the old address, but that's okay. It still works. You can report 10 of these a day. You can give us the title of the record and then the OCLC control number. Remember that control number is in the key field. The title is right here, obviously, the 245 and up at the top. But I'm just thinking, let's keep these out of cataloging requests. Let's just make these a regular email record update. And then we can take it from there on our end. If we happen to need to see the item, we'll touch base with the member that sent us the record update email. But like I said, I'd like to try and make this as painless as possible for you, our members, to report these to us as you come across them. Okay.
So you got a couple thank yous in
pause.
there, but I don't see any other questions.
Let's see.
Chantry and Julia, I think both said thank you.
Oh,
They
I see
hadn't
something from
connected.
Rebecca from Farmington. To be clear, we can import level 8 records from Connection. Yes, that is right. So if you search OCLC and the only record available that matches your item is an encoding level 8, you can go ahead and import it into workflows. No need to report it to us. If we see that, okay, we answered Lori's question. Oh, thanks, Jane. You answered the 8 question
That's
as
okay.
well. Yeah, it's tricky. That's a good point, Chantry, because like I was saying, the defaults are a little bit screwy to me in Connection. Remember, in some places it's variable, in some places it's whole record. So it's certainly a good idea to double check, because you never know what it's going to do. If we go into OCLC and download the record with the variable field, will it overlay with the correct fixed field? Yes, that's a good question, Joanne. Excuse me, certainly Julia from Normal or Jennifer Jacobson Wood from Peoria, if either of you wants to chime in, because I know that your libraries have been coming across these and you've been re-importing into workflow. So they should be replacing the fixed fields and then having the correct values. But like I said, certainly chime in if that's not the case. Okay, good. Julia says they do overlay. Yeah, good question, Joanne at Pekin. Yeah. Let me look and see here if there was anything else I wanted to mention about this. Oh, okay. Just a couple other things I'll mention. Then like I mentioned, we'll take a break. But several of these fixed field values, they really are important. And I was just going to show you how some of these values come into play. I'm still trying to think about the best approach for cleaning these up, these records where they've been wiped out. I have some ideas, but nothing really concrete to share at this point. But I thought I'd just take a couple minutes here to show that these values are important. So we do want to make sure we're not erasing them. So this first value, this record type, I admit this may not be widely used, but still, that record type value that's on the fixed field, it powers this option on the RSA CAT advanced search screen. So notice on this advanced search screen, there's this format type menu under additional limits. These are based off of fixed field values. So again, I don't know how much the screen's being used, but you never know. We want to make sure we have the information available there for those patrons who are using this screen. The encoding level obviously is important as we try to do cleanup from our end as time allows. Remember, trying to target, like Lisa mentioned earlier, once we're more caught up on our end, trying to target records, 8s or Ms, where they're missing important information. If this encoding level value has been stripped out, that's going to make our finding of the records in need of improvement. That's going to make it more difficult if it's been stripped out. The dates are important. This date 1 here, that displays in a couple places. So notice here, if I just do a simple keyword title search for CAT, the publication year, this pulls first from the 260 or the 264 field on the bibliographic record. So notice scrolling down, this is a newer record, so it has these publication copyright fields, 264s. But if a record doesn't have a 260 or a 264, which seems unlikely because most records do, it's required in OCLC. But it can cause trouble with the publication year display if that fixed field isn't populated. Same thing here in the RSA CAT. I am somehow stuck on this page. How do I go back? There we go. Let me do a simple search here. So the date also comes into play here in the RSA cat, but fortunately it's pulling from the 260, 264 field first, but it's also looking at that fixed field that's been wiped out. So notice it displays here in the result list. There's a facet over here. It's here on the item details screen. So I realize the 260 and the 264 are pretty much always going to be available to populate this date. But remember, we still need the fixed field in there as well because it comes into play as these are being determined. And then just a couple more that are important. Oh, the language. Yeah, that was the next one because this language fixed field here, that's another facet in the RSA cat. So that pulls from that fixed field facet. So again, the idea was not to seem overbearing about this, but I know sometimes it's easy to think, oh, you know, those are just codes at the top of the record. They're probably not overly important because most of what's down here is what libraries and patrons care about, but actually those values are very important. So we are going to be looking at how we can do some cleanup of these ones where they've been erased because we realize they're not all going to be reported to us. You may not come across them. You may not have time to report them. So we realize having you help us is just one piece of this. There also has to be another piece that's still being determined at this point. So I call this the fixed field can of worms. It is still open. I'm hoping in May I can share more information about what the cleanup approach is. But truly though, if you come across these in workflows with the values stripped out, if you can either re-import the record to correctly populate the values, or if you can report it to us just with a simple email, that would be much appreciated. Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, and Pam had a comment. Pam Thomas, she said that the computer cares about the fixed field codes.
Yes, that's right. So it's maybe not the patron or the staff member who cares, but that's right. The computer does care about them. Thank you for chiming in there. Okay. Anything else I missed in the chat or any questions before we take a 5-minute break? Okay. Well, if you think of something, reach out to our help desk. I know it's a convoluted issue, but like I said, just be aware. We know it's happening and we'll be working with the library that's mostly been responsible for it.
This is your reminder to stop recording.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's see here. Let me get the timer going. So we will see everybody in 5 minutes. So I will get the timer going. Oops, get the timer going here. All right. Okay, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Recording. Okay, hopefully you see a blinking red light now. So as I mentioned, okay, great. As I mentioned, I was looking again during the break at my notes just because there's so many pieces to this fixed field issue. There may be a chance if your library uses OCLC connection and you try to re-import the record into workflows to correct the fixed fields. We've talked about this before, but I thought I'd mention this again because I know this may be an issue. Remember, sometimes you'll see on the load bibliographic records report after you try to load the record, you may see this flexible key already exists error, and then it says a date cataloged. It's always towards the top of the bib load report, and it has the asterisks. If you see this, I know a couple of our larger libraries have a workaround, but the majority of you, if you see this, please just report it to us as a bib record in need of update using these instructions here in the reporting cataloging issues to RSA, this page 10 here. I just know as you're trying to re-import records, there may be some that don't overlay due to that error. So those we'd be happy to take it from our end if you come across this message. Basically, the record is protected in workflows from overlay due to it being edited locally, since master edits weren't possible on the OCLC record. So like I mentioned, if your library doesn't have a workaround for this, which I know we've given to Peoria, Quincy, and Normal, since they have original cataloging staff, but I know this error may show up for others of you too that are trying to re-import records. So if that happens, just report it to us as record in need of update, and we'll bring it in for you. You could still attach your item in workflows, so you're not waiting on us to re-import it. Does that make sense? I know that's one more piece of the puzzle, but remember the basics are, if you come across a record like this, weird fixed field values, if it matches your item, attach. If you use OCLC connection and you have the time, re-import it. If you're not able to re-import it due to this error, let us know. Either the error, or you don't have time, or you don't use OCLC connection. Any of those cases, just report it to us as a record in need of update. So that's kind of the bird's eye view of that issue. And remember, once a cleanup approach is determined from our end, there'll be a follow-up to this discussion, but at this point, I need to give it some more thought what exactly we're going to do to clean these up, besides just having you help us as you come across them, reporting them to us. Okay, that's it for that issue. You were probably thinking we were going so well for this meeting, and look what happened. So, okay, I'll let you, Heidi, move us forward in the agenda if nobody has any questions.
Are there any questions? I haven't looked at the chat. I don't think so. So if there is, just chime in. We're going to move on then to cataloging restructuring progress.
Yes, let me go to my slides here. Okay. We've been talking about this off and on since last fall. Remember, we'll continue to have cataloging roundtables to discuss these particular phases in more detail. I know that the discussion we had, for example, about the first phase and the plan overall, we certainly need a separate venue for that, since there's always plenty to talk about in these database meetings. But where we are with this, we're still towards the tail end of phase one. I've begun to look at OCLC training curriculum. I'm looking at some of the OCLC training modules. So I would say I've dipped a toe into phase two. Remember, there's 3 additional phases after that as we move further into this year. But rest assured, we are doing our best to try and stay on track with this. So let me give you some specifics here. Okay, so progress report on phase one that we implemented January 5th. As many of you, if not all of you, know that we stopped the encoding level 8 and M requests. Remember, those records have sufficient bibliographic description for searching and understanding the content. We realize there's some of those records that would be helpful to revisit later, for example, if they're missing page numbers, but for the most part, they're sufficient enough to help you and your patrons understand what it is, what it's about, if you want to actually check it out. we removed the fax submission method. Remember, that was causing too many issues with fuzzy, blurry, incomplete submissions of items being sent to us. And then it just resulted in more back and forth, delaying even further the turnaround time for cataloging the item because the team needed to get the physical item or get some usable photos. The stop chasing policy, remember that's where we process a request, but as we're doing so, we realize we need more information or maybe something's missing in the images or the scans that you submitted. The idea behind this is we send you an email asking for more information. If we don't hear from you in another week, we send another email asking you to follow up, mentioning that if there's no response after that second week, we'll go ahead and close the case so that we don't have, as I call it, these cataloging requests perpetually living in the help desk, waiting to be processed, but there was no response from the submitter. Let's see, the oops policy. This one, I've told the cataloging team, Kendall and I have been working on a draft of this oops alert that you'll get in delivery. But remember the idea behind this is if an item arrives at the Rails East Peoria Service Center and it was sent in delivery for cataloging, it also could be paper photocopies. If the cataloging team member sorting that incoming delivery, if they can't find a cataloging request, they're going to stick this oops letter in it that essentially asks you to submit a cataloging request and send it back to us after you've done that. That way we don't have these items slipping through the cracks that are sent to us, but no request. It also helps establish a point of contact for the cataloging request too. That's the other important reason we want cataloging requests submitted for things sent in delivery. We need to know which library and which staff member we should be corresponding with as it gets cataloged. So this letter has been quite an ongoing process, but it should hopefully be finished soon. I know my plan is to share it on the listserv once it's ready so that everybody will see a copy of it. But essentially the oops letter, it'll be on colored paper, it'll be stuck in the item or stapled to the photocopies. So it should hopefully be obvious when it arrives back at your library that it was sent without a request and what your next steps need to be in order for us to process it. We're just afraid as more things come and they don't have requests, it's very easy for those things to get lost in the shuffle with the hundreds of items that come in every month. So we're certainly not trying to make this more difficult. We just want to make sure everything is tracked and has a point of contact that is sent to us. And then this last one is also, it's been quite ongoing. We're working on getting statistics of our workload here to be more transparent about the number of requests being submitted, not just cataloging, but also database maintenance. It's difficult because we're trying to reconcile numbers from two different help desks that have completely different ways of tracking things, but it is getting easier because we're transitioning more to that new help desk that we talked about during the February meeting. So just be assured with these D and E here for the oops policy and the cataloging snapshot, they're not lost in the shuffle. We're just still trying to get our ducks in a row for them. So you will see more information coming on the listserv as those take firmer shape. So like I said, we're trying to move to the end of this phase so that more of our attention can start to look at the OCLC training curriculum being reworked and then also reworking the cataloging request forms. That's something also that's very important for us to do. Any questions just before I summarize this slide about the phase 2, which I know I've mentioned a little bit already. Any questions about where we are with the phase 1? We're getting there. Slowly but surely, it feels like sometimes. Okay. I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. Yeah, so just remember the idea with reworking the training curriculum is we recognize there's a need for members to use OCLC, but we also realized we need to take a look at how that training is being structured, since we have a centralized cataloging department now that we didn't have when we used to offer that training. Looking to it at what the scope will be when we start to offer it in the coming months versus the scope of it when it was offered in the past. So we're looking at the format, whether it'll be one-on-one, group, in person, online. We're looking at prerequisites, what needs to be done before the training, both on our end and for the attendee. Looking at the curriculum, the documentation, the exercises, the homework, and documentation, of course, plays into the curriculum. So this is a huge undertaking. It's going to take some more time to rework this, but like I said, we're doing our best to stay on track with the timeline for this, with at least pilots starting in summer, even if the class isn't fully up and running. I know summer is a difficult time to do trainings, but I'm hoping by summer we can have a pilot put together. So the roundtable, additional ones, remember talking about these specific phases in more detail as we move into them and have more information to share. Remember, roundtables will be scheduled, and invitations sent on the listserv. I really do think those are the best way we can keep you informed about what's involved in these different phases rather than trying to squish even more into these meetings. So I think for the cataloging progress, that's all I had for that one. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything in the chat? No. Okay.
No, there is not. Sorry.
That's okay.
I have construction going on outside here and I was so I keep trying to, I normally wouldn't mute myself, but I'm trying to keep you from hearing the buzzsaw that's going on.
There's a lot going on there too. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no questions, do you want to move us forward, Heidi, on the agenda?
Sure. All right, we're going to move on to the RSA membership changes.
Oh, good. I just saw a question come in. Okay, so we'll put a pause on the membership changes. Yes, that's right, Lori. For now, the core competencies for cataloging staff at RSA member libraries, those are the same. Remember, there's potential to rework those. They really do need to be reworked as part of the overall project to rework the RSA membership levels. But we decided to leave these core competencies as is because it just seemed like that was unnecessary effort when new membership levels are coming. So those core competencies, if you go to the rsanfp.org site, remember it pulls up the colorful banner here at the top. If I go down here to the policy handbook on the left, there's cataloging policies. It's right here, the core competencies. So yeah, these are still in effect. Like I said, not to try and take the easy way out because we realize these need to be overhauled as part of that bigger project with membership levels, which Kendall has actually started working with a committee of you, our members, on that project. So it's not an easy way out. It's just the best use of our time and energy right now to keep these as is until there's a bigger overhaul of the membership levels. So yeah, these stay in effect. Did that answer your question, Lori, or was there something else you were wondering about? Okay. I'll give her a minute to respond, but I'll go ahead and push forward to the.
That answers it, she said.
Okay, great. You're welcome.
Thank
I'll
you.
push forward here to the membership changes. Yeah, I didn't have a slide for this. I had hoped to, but okay, anyways, that's neither here nor there. So our first new member to tell you about, Astoria. Public Library. They finished their cataloging cleanup this past January, which is great. They got the collection cataloged in about a year and a half. So that's excellent. So they are going to be doing patron entry training with Anna next week. So they're moving forward with getting their users entered. The next one, Ransom Public Library. This is kind of in the Galesburg area. They finished the cataloging cleanup, and then I think Anna's going to look at patron entry training for them sometime this spring. I think next month is what we were targeting. So Ransom is moving forward too with patrons. Next one is Rova School District. This one I wanted to show you on the membership list because this is a little bit confusing. So here on our website, we do have the RSA membership on the left, and then remember it has this downloadable list. Earlier this year, Rova High School, they unfortunately, the library at the high school, they're basically folded. There's still a library, but it's very small. A lot of the materials were moved to teacher classrooms. Teachers just staff the library when the classes visit, and the teachers check books in and out. They don't have workflows anymore at the high school because it was obviously too expensive since there's not much of a library left. But the school district there in Rova, this is also kind of in the Galesburg area, they decided to shift the RSA membership from the high school to the elementary school because that has a sizable collection. It has a library assistant who works in there the whole school day. So they're shifting their membership, but what that means is it's going to be another one of those confusing codes where it looks like it's the high school based on the workflows code, but it's actually the elementary school. And the reason for that is this is just way too expensive to change this code to elementary school. It's a couple $1,000s with Circe Dynex. So for a school with a with a budget that's limited, especially for library service, we decided just to keep the high school code, but it's going to be for the elementary school. And they just started cataloging in mid-February. So they're getting started with the first part of their project. All of the high school items have been deleted from workflows as well as the high school patrons. So it's a fresh slate for the elementary school. I have two more to tell you about. Stark County Elementary School. This is, I think, probably the last time I'll mention this one. It's another one that has kind of a funny code. Remember, it took the junior high code, but it's actually the elementary school. So same situation. This list actually needs to be updated. I'm glad that I'm looking at this. They've mostly finished cataloging. They kind of jumped ahead in the process and skipped some steps. I won't go into that right now, but it's kind of a mess there. But Anna is planning to circle back and make sure that their checkouts and their holds are working correctly, just because things haven't been checking out as they should for their teachers and students. So this one is no longer new, but it's still kind of rocky there. So I just wanted to mention that. The last one I'll mention is Williamsfield Public Library. This one I know we've mentioned quite a few times these past couple years. This one has been done cataloging for some time. There's been some question whether or not they want to move forward with their RSA membership. So I know Kendall is working with Rails to figure out what the next step is for that library. So this one, we're hoping they'll stay in as a member. We're just not really sure at this point since the process is stalled for them. We do have a library interested in joining RSA, a public library in the northern part of our service area called New Windsor Public Library, but that's just interest at this point. I don't think anything official has been submitted to RSA for the board, for our board to approve their membership, but I thought I'd mention New Windsor Public Library since that would be a new one. Yeah, thank you, Carla. It is, yeah, northern. So Viola, and I think kind of in the Alwood area too, possibly. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that one. You may hear that one again. Any questions about where we are with the new members? So we'll try to get this list a little tweaked. I know a couple things are in need of tweaks, but this is the best place to look here if you're wondering who's new, what they're doing, or if they have a strange code situation like Rova or Stark County. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to the next agenda item, Heidi.
There we go. Okay, we're going to go on to the service anniversaries at RSA.
Yeah, so I know you've all been looking at the slide several minutes now. That's okay. That's why I put the graphic on there. Yeah, so we've had several of us that have had service anniversaries since the last time we shared service anniversaries back in September at that database meeting. So Rhonda's been with us 8 years, Jennifer celebrating her first, Jane 2, me 12. Wow, things have changed, I feel like. That's for sure. But like it mentions here, if you celebrated your work anniversary since September, go ahead and share it in the chat too, and tell us how long, because we'd like to recognize you too.
Did you see Melody Hex, 25 years as director and 46 years working at Galva?
Oh, way to go, Melody. That's something to be proud
That's a
of for
record.
sure. Yeah. Oh, and I see Sarah Baker right before that, 1 year on January 13th at Peoria. Congratulations.
Abby Miles, 10 years at Brimfield.
Oh, way to go, Abby.
Chantry's been at Blessings for 4 years.
That's great. Oh, yay, Pam. Congratulations. 6 years at IHLS. Yeah, it makes me feel old too, Melody. And I know I'm just 12, so I can only imagine. Almost 20 for Aaron. That's great at Illinois Prairie. Wow, Nancy, that's amazing too. 33 years. You're in second place after
Wow.
after Melody. That's great. Elizabeth's at 14. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, how about we do a collective round of applause for everybody? Way to go. Thank you for being part of either our team here at RSA or what you do at your members. All of it's appreciated. Yeah, I know sometimes it's easy to feel unrecognized and unappreciated since we're in the back room. So hopefully you don't feel that way, but yeah. Okay. Well, let's take a look here and see. Okay, next up.
Back to basics for RSA Day 2021.
I wanted to throw this in because I know I touched base with Heidi and then also Pam at the Cataloging Maintenance Center. And actually, this is a breaking development. I talked with Nancy from Rails this morning. Remember, she works at Burr Ridge, and she confirmed she'll be there. So we're putting together a cataloging session for this RSA Day 2021, Back to Basics. It's not yet posted on L2, and I don't think there's been a listserv post unless I've missed it, but there will be soon. It's going to be Wednesday, April 21st, and then Thursday, April 22nd. So if one of my helpers wants to type Wednesday, April 21st and Thursday, April 22nd, if one of our team members wants to type that in the chat, since I don't have anything to show at this point, but it's going to be 2 days, different sessions, online only, in Zoom. You might remember the past few RSA days; those have been organized and had kind of it was helpful because it wasn't just RSA related. It was even topics like Reader's Advisory and Alzheimer's, serving those patrons. And I know Miguel Figueroa from the Future of the Libraries at ALA. I know he did a keynote session. Maybe that was last year or the year before. But this year, since things have been so difficult with the pandemic and trying to plan and get outside speakers, the committee of members that puts together RSA Day, they thought we could just return to the basics, meaning that the sessions would be RSA facilitated. There will be a session with some Rails staff about delivery and e-content, and I think maybe Monica Harris, the Rails assistant director, might be there. But one of the sessions, like I mentioned, will be a cataloging session. I'm not sure which day, if it's going to be the 21st or the 22nd. But now that I know that Pam from the CMC, Nancy from Rails, and Heidi can be there those days, I will work with Anna here at RSA and pick a date and time soon before everybody's calendars fill up. But I just wanted to put the bug in your ear that there'll be this 2-day event. You're welcome to join us. I hope you'll consider it. There'll be some information on the listserv coming out. And then there'll be a cataloging session one of those 2 days. Time to be determined. And we're hoping to make it something interactive and somewhat fun. We know that this can be a pretty dry topic. So we'll try to come up with something fun for us to do on Zoom and learn something as well. Okay, any questions about the RSA Day? Mostly just mark your calendars and stay tuned for more information as it takes shape.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Oh, sorry, Heidi.
That's all right.
It's always hard on these, isn't it?
It
When
is.
you're interrupting. Yeah. I think it's actually Heidi's turn to talk. So this is a good segue.
Really, I love it. Okay, so we're going to move on to future plans. And for those of you in attendance for the last meeting, the RSA, or not the RSA, well, yeah, RSA catalog meeting, we started looking into having a technical services networking group. And we're looking at, so Eric and I kind of discussed this, and we're looking at breaking this into 2 different types of meetings. So we'll have the RSA meeting like we have now, and we may have the in-between meetings for this group. But we're also looking at starting a second group for just technical services networking, for different questions that come up, if you have any ideas, or if there's any type of training or anything you want to kind of discuss and see what's going on with everybody. It's a good place to actually get with everybody else and ask some questions and kind of see what's going on. So anyway, we're looking at doing that on a different day and time. And I sent out I think actually I gave it to Erica, and she sent it out to everybody, a survey to figure out kind of how often we might want to meet and what we would like to come up with. So I know we've got about 47 responses already. So if you haven't had a chance, if you could please go ahead and fill that out. I can tell you right now that about half the folks feel like it should be a quarterly meeting, followed closely by bi-monthly or only when necessary. It was overwhelmingly so far put down as to have it just for 1 hour. And any information so far should be through the RSA website or the Google Drive. And we're looking at different names, what we could name this. And there are places where you can make suggestions for the different topics and other ideas that you might want to discuss. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback on those. So if you could, I think it's available till March 22nd. So if you could fill that out and get that back in, or, go online and fill that out before the 22nd, then we can kind of determine when the next meeting will be. And always try to, if you have any ideas or stuff you want to talk about, just send me an email so that we can kind of get an agenda started for that. If you have any questions, just let me know. You can always email me or call me. I'm at Alpha Park Library, and my email is heidi@alphapark.org. And Heidi is Heidi. It's been spelled a million different ways, so that's.
I know how that feels. That's for sure.
Yep. So that's for the future plans of the tech services networking. And then the database committee meetings, Erica, I'll let you kind of explain how we ended up with those dates.
Yeah, I was trying to dig in my email. ignore that. I had opened my email because I was going to get that survey link here. Maybe you can find it, Heidi, faster than I can. I was thinking we could share your survey link in the text chat. Yeah. So following up what Heidi was mentioning, that idea of separate meetings for the technical services networking and the database committee. Like I mentioned earlier, we're still just trying to experiment with what the best way there is to do this. I'm really thrilled, Kendall is too, with the amount of interest that you, our membership, have in the technical services networking. That's exciting to us because for so long there just didn't seem to be much interest in that type of event. So we're thrilled that this is something that there seems to be a healthy amount of interest. Oh, good. Carla found that survey link. Thank you, Carla. Yeah, I was thinking in case anybody wants to fill that out now. Yeah, so the current approach Heidi and I were thinking is we picked some dates for the rest of this year for these informational meetings that'll last. I think we'll continue to schedule 2.5 hours. I definitely don't want to do 3. That's really pushing the limit. So we'll probably stick with 2.5 hours for these informational update meetings where it has Heidi guiding us along, and then it has updates from RSA, Cataloging Maintenance Center, and Rails cataloging staff. And then the networking will be separate. So we picked dates, like I said, for the rest of this year. The one coming up is mentioned here on the agenda, May 21st. This one is posted on the L2 calendar. So just keep that in mind if you know that the morning of the 21st works for you and you want to go ahead and register. I don't have the rest of them posted yet on L2 with Zoom links set up, but I thought I'd go ahead and share the dates here. This will be kind of messy, but I'll paste this into the text chat from my notes. The one in May, as it mentions, we'll continue just to do that online only, but we're interested to see once we get to the September meeting, where we might be with possibly doing something in person, if members are comfortable with it, if there's plenty of space for social distancing. So we'll have to see where we are. I went ahead and pasted this in so you can have the dates and make a note. But that Thursday, September 23rd, will be the one for the fall. Like I said, possibly in person. It's not yet posted on L2. Definitely it'll be in Zoom, if nothing else. And then the one after that will be Wednesday, November 10th at 9:30. Definitely Zoom. Unsure about in person. We'll see where we're at. And it also is not yet posted, but I did put these on our calendar, and I know Heidi has them on hers too. So we won't double book before they're posted on L2. I realize that the meetings don't always fall between the users group. So in November, this meeting might actually happen after the users group. I know the timing for these may not work with the users group, but I talked it over with Kendall and he agreed that it's okay to focus more on getting a regular, at least a somewhat more regular frequency for these rather than trying to work it around the users group and other things going on our end. So we're looking more just to have some consistency in the schedule. And then like Heidi mentioned, we'll continue to do in-person meetings as necessary, but I know Heidi's trying to help me keep an eye on what's on the agenda and helping us make sure we can try to get through everything. I definitely realize it's not the best use of your time or ours to be scheduling lots of additional meetings. So we truly want to have meetings when it's necessary and then make good use of the time so that you're not having to set aside even more time. So it's a process, but like I said, we're just trying to get some regularity in the meetings with them coming up in May, September, November. Let me look and see here. Any questions about that? Certainly stay tuned to the listserv. Remember, as things are posted on L2 and invitations go out.
So then the next RSA database meeting will be Friday, May 21st from 9:30 a.m. until noon. And we'll have it virtually for sure, and then possibly in person.
We'll see in September about the in-person.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm jumping the gun on that one.
I feel like it changes daily sometimes
Doesn't
what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, and everybody's doing different things at this point, so it's hard to know. It's hard to remember who's doing what.
You're right. There's no cohesive plan. Yeah. So maybe in the fall, though. Maybe in the
Okay.
fall.
All right, so Friday, May 21 will still be all Zoom. And then if you have any agenda ideas, you can send those to Erica or myself. We are looking at creating a submit or suggest a topic form on the RSA webpage. Let's see, I don't think is it completely up yet or no?
No, we're working on it, but it'll look kind of like this one here. The suggested discussion topic for users group. It'll be similar, but we need to make some tweaks since the focus of this group is different than that group. But this is a good example of what it'll look like. One thing I wanted to mention, you can submit anonymously. So if you have something that you feel like we should talk about, but you prefer not to have your name associated with it, that's perfectly fine. We realize sometimes that can encourage you to submit topics that maybe you wouldn't submit otherwise. So yeah, not ready yet, but we're getting there.
And will you have one for both the RSA database meeting and also the RSA networking? Will there be two different ones or will it just be the one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking it would just be one, but we can certainly chat after the meeting if you think two might be better. But yeah, I was thinking we could just get everything through one form and then kind of sort it out from there.
I think that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the only thing to mention about that. Yeah, we've got some time left. I don't know if there's questions. Everybody's fizzled out. I know I'm kind of getting fizzled, but we'll certainly be glad to answer questions if there are any. Okay, well, I think I will let you, Heidi, go ahead and let's see, that'd be convene the meeting or adjourn. I always mix the two up.
Adjourn.
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 I always mix them up. I don't know why.
All right. Well, if
Okay.
there are any questions, you can always reach out to Erica. And we will we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you for joining us. And please watch the RSA listserv for an announcement once the meeting recording and the notes are available.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Hope to see you in May, if not before. Take care. Bye-bye.
Stop the recording.
Let's see here.